What's up, guys? Welcome back to Erudite Magic. My name is Jeff. If you love magic books like I do, Erudite Magic is the right place for you, and we are happy to have you. Smash that like button, click the subscribe button, and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss any of the awesome magic book content we have in store for you. In today's video, I want to talk to you about one of my absolute favorite creators. In fact, this is one of my favorite books of all time. So in general, I like creators that are slightly offbeat and maybe create a different vibe than other magical creators such as Paul Harris, John Bannon, and the subject of today's video, none other than David Regal. David Regal has quite a portfolio from which to choose. So what is today's book? It is Approaching Magic. This book is one of my favorite books of all time. Part of it's simply the heft of the book itself. This is a thick, juicy book full of great magic. Just a minute ago, I referenced John Bannon, Paul Harris, and David Regal all pretty much in the same breath. However, one of these is not like the others. When you look at a Paul Harris or a John Bannon, what you're going to find is mostly close-up magic, mostly card magic. In the case of John Bannon, 100%. Well, I shouldn't say 100%, but very close. You know what I mean. David Regal is far more of a parlor performer and is as comfortable doing close-up and walk-around card magic as he is on the stage of the Magic Castle. Now, you may be tempted to think that David Regal is only a Magic Castle type performer. I beg to differ. David is a professional TV show writer and has written several episodes for Rugrats, Everybody Loves Raymond, and has been the producer of The Carbonaro Effect for quite some time now. So David knows exactly the kind of magic that real people like to see. The other thing that I absolutely love about David's magic is that he only puts things in the book that are tried and tested. You're never going to get anything that's just off the top of his mind. You're always going to get something that's audience tested and David approved. So why do I love this book? I want to read a brief snippet from the introduction written by David Regal because I think it encapsulates well so much of why this book is great. In the introduction, David says, "We all approach magic with our unique strengths and objectives, and this book's aim is to put forward a process that will allow you to inject more of yourself into your magic, making both you and your presentations more memorable to audiences and increasing your own pleasure of performing. This is a book of tricks, yes, but it is also a pathway that can guide you to performing magic not more like me, but more like you, with the attendant rewards and satisfactions that come with personal expression." So David sets it up right up front that he wants you to perform magic more like you. This book does a tremendous job of doing that, but it comes with a few caveats. Everything in this book is broken down into easy to understand segments within the book. Within the list of tricks in the table of contents, you have sections such as a deck of cards, remuneration, a hookup talking about IT, more than a deck of cards, so talking about things that might require a difference than just a regular pack of cards, so you may have to do some extra work for these tricks. Mentalism, packet magic, liquid refreshment, our secret, which is mostly a group of Monty effects, three-piece band, which are items that can be performed using generally rings in a parlor type environment, and sleights with cards. Interspersed throughout are essays that David has written on the subject of magic and talking about your character, conditions and impact, and other topics that are going to make your magic better. In addition, he has a lengthy interview with Armando Lucero about his magic and what has shaped him and helped him to become the magician that he is. I think you'll find that as interesting as I did. It's great. In fact, I think that this interview was so successful that it set David up for the next book, Interpreting Magic, more to come on that, for doing many interviews throughout the book with famous magicians to garner what we can from them and their experience. So those are the broad categories, but what about the specific tricks? Are you just getting a bunch of card tricks, or what are you getting here? Not at all. I would suggest that less than half of the book is card tricks. And in fact, so many of the items in this book are done with everyday, ordinary objects, but that are interesting. That's probably why I love this book so much. David uses Altoid tins, broken and restored credit cards, chop cups that you can make yourself that are just a ceramic cup done with marshmallows and a cocoa theme, ending with a production of hot cocoa out of an otherwise empty cup. He uses envelopes, DVD cases, cards with holes in them. How interesting is that? There's stuff with socks, books, paper, dog tags, you name it. One of the essays that David includes in here is on conditions and impact, and I thought that that was one of the best essays in the book. They're all great, but I really got a lot from that particular essay, wherein he talks about setting up the conditions of your magic before the impact. The audience needs to be sure about the props that you're using and the conditions surrounding the effect in their own minds before the magic. Otherwise, they're always going to be left wondering. And that shines through in David's magic here because everything he shows you how to do, the conditions are set up way ahead of time. So David's definitely practicing what he preaches. In addition to all these tricks with all these different items, there were a number of these effects that were later released commercially on their own. So this book represents really good value. For example, the restored credit trick, which is essentially a broken and restored credit card. Now, when I first learned this from approaching magic, I was doing a lot of travel for my other job. And one of the things that quickly came to my mind was that this effect, he teaches you how to make it yourself, so you don't need to buy the commercial effect. But this effect, I think, has a very nice presentational hook and is even easier to make and use if you use hotel keys. If you have any questions about it and you own the book, send me a message or drop me an email and I would be happy to walk you through my idea. The world's greatest invention is a production of a glass of beer from a placemat type of object that has been sold with the correct type of placemat. David tells you how you can get your own, so you don't really need to buy that. And I do understand that the new one has some improvements, but I think that if you start to use this effect, you'll come up with your own improvements that won't require you to buy it, so representing even more value. Change for a 5 is another commercially released item, one of my favorites because it's such a neat idea. It's a Monty effect with 3 cards, and in the end, the 3 cards which have been in play the whole time, there's no going to your pockets or anything like that, those cards change into 3 different 5s. There's a plot and a presentation with it that make it really neat. This would be a good one for a Zoom show if you're working on those kinds of things, or for the unblinking eye of a camera, it would be just fine. Simpatico is one of the ones early on that I focused on. I've performed this a number of times. I came up with my own improvements. And in fact, if you look at one of my previous videos on how to study a magic book, when I talked about writing on a piece of paper and sticking that in the book, you can actually see where my notes for Simpatico are sticking out of approaching magic. This is a great effect and was also commercially released. You probably don't need to buy the download, it's right here, and this is an awesome effect. If you're going to do impactful card magic, I think that's really neat to have 2 participants do most of the magic and end up, call it, reading each other's minds. It's a great presentation, and especially if you're trying to do something special for either a couple or even if you're at a business-related show, you can get 2 people who've worked together for a long time, or the boss and a subordinate, whatever you want to do. It's wide open for different ways to present it, limited only by your imagination. Consolidation is David's version of a bill change. They take a $1 bill, they put some quarters into it, and it ends up that it turns into a $2 bill. Pretty neat, and of course it gives you a way to do a giveaway if you'd like. Finally, Royal Jazz Quartet is a close-up packet trick. Doesn't require anything super special. You can learn how to do it right from the book, but it is taught here and it is also commercially released. I mentioned earlier about David's scripting, and I want to touch on that again for a second because while he mentioned in the introduction that he wants you to use this book to become your own performer with all of those pleasures that go with expressing yourself, the one danger, I think, of David Regal's magic is that he is such a great scriptwriter that the temptation is going to be to copy and use exactly what he said in his write-up because he does such a great job of creating interesting conversations with people and interesting plots for these magic tricks. Now, of course, you should be writing your own scripts, and he talks about scripting in this book, so he's helping you forward along that path. And I think that his presentations give you a great jumping off point and stimulate a lot of creative thinking, as well as humorous anecdotes and little bits that could be used in a wide variety of tricks. But you need to tailor these things to yourself. So it's not really a risk because it's a bad thing. What I'm telling you is that everything in the book, with the way that he presents it, is going to be very powerful, and the temptation is going to be to stop thinking right there and present it exactly as he has. And I think that would be a mistake and not what he intended. Let me tell you a little bit more about why this book is one of my favorites as a personal anecdote, because I think that this is the kind of book that can grow with you. What I mean by that is when I started, I was a big David Regal fan, and I mostly performed card magic. This book has quite a bit of card magic, and I think that all of the tricks are really neat, interesting, and slightly offbeat. Not the same things that you're going to find in a typical book, and certainly not a pick a card and find it type. However, I got into mentalism, performing mentalism for audiences, and when I did, David's book has quite a few mentalism tricks that are absolutely excellent. Several of these effects have come and gone in my various acts, but they are all high impact, professional caliber mentalism. Now, I also appreciate all of the essays, and I think that I've come to appreciate those essays even more as I've grown as a magician. So that's what I mean about this book being one that can grow with you, because whether you're a card person and you end up trying to do some mentalism, there's going to be something in here for everyone. Let's talk for a minute about the value equation. So last week I talked about producing magic books and they're getting more expensive, and $40 for a smaller book, and there was some back and forth with different people about the fact that they don't think that that represents good value. I promise you this book represents tremendous value. At the time it was released, it was $75, and today I think most places you can score this for $57. And if you look for one on the used market, you may be able to get it for even less. This is a killer amount of magic for this price. I think you would be very hard-pressed to find a book that covers more magic, more essays, more ways to make you a better magician for less money. You don't have to love David's style of presentation, which is kind of crazy, to appreciate the magic that he's created in this book. I happen to appreciate both, but to each his own. I know that at this point, this is an older book, so some of you are going to think, yeah, I'm not interested, but I promise you there's so much great magic in here that has not gone out of style at all. The production values are quite good. I understand there's a softback version of this now. I have no idea if the ones currently being sold are softback, but the content itself didn't change, so I don't think it's too big of a deal. There are hundreds and hundreds of black and white photographs throughout the book, making it extremely easy to understand what's going on and learn the effects. The paper is what I would call maybe an eggshell or semi-glossy. It's not really a glossy paper, which is a good thing. However, you can feel the heft of this book, that the paper is thicker, nicer, and will last a long time. I haven't actually weighed the book, but it's pretty heavy. Each trick starts off by telling you what the effect should be, the items that you'll need to make this happen, and then walks you through both the presentation and the methodology basically at the same time. This makes it really easy to do what I said in my video on studying a magic book. You can walk through with the props in hand and have no problem following along and kind of practicing and doing that initial trial run. I hope that I've explained exactly why I am so excited about this book, even 12 years after it came out, and I got it pretty quickly after it came out. As if the tricks themselves weren't enough in the book, there's a whole section in the back on different sleights and variations of sleights that David has come up with. There are items about a one-handed half pass with a whole section of different applications for that one-handed half pass depending on what you're doing, whether it's an oil and water or some other type of effect. There are several switches, and there's his take on the Herman pass. This book is so large that it would be very difficult to walk you through everything in here, so I hope that this has given you a really good flavor for the types of things that you can expect to see in it, and to whet your appetite for some fantastic magic. It's also just a lot of fun to read. I think that you'll enjoy David's style of writing and the presentations that he comes up up with will definitely spark your creative juices for your own routines, whether or not you choose to use his. Thank you for your support through watching, subscribing, liking, and even buying magic books. It's great to know that there are people out there who love magic books as much as I do. I'm including a link down below to purchase the book if you're interested. I highly recommend it. Stay tuned because there's definitely going to be more David Regal content coming on this channel in the future. As always, I am an open book, so if there are questions I didn't get to, drop a comment down below, and until next time, keep reading.